Hey there, this is Chidanand from Kratz Infotech NG. Welcome to this tutorial on GitHub Actions with self-hosted or local runners. One of the good things about GitHub Action is that it provides you, the platform as such provides you out-of-the-box runners, which are nothing but in if I were to draw a parallel with Jenkins, these are like agents which can scale up and down based upon your requirement and your need, and of course, how you have licensed it. Having said that, there are some sort of anti-patterns at times when you would want to run your own runner. A lot of use cases that I can think about where you have some sort of proprietary software or you have some applications which are running well within your data centers, and you would not want the default runner that is provided by GitHub, which is running on the GitHub cloud to access some of your application. You're better off in such cases where you would want to have your own runners. Runners are pretty much lightweight agents as such. And in this demo, what I want to do is I will demonstrate how to first set up your own runner. I have a Windows 10 machine. On that machine, I have a bunch of other softwares installed as well. The JDK, the Maven, and also curl. So what I want to do is I want to first set up a runner and connect this runner which is running on this local box onto a GitHub repository for whichever I would like to kind of configure this runner. Later, on this repository, there is a Maven based project. The source code is of a Maven based Java project. So I'm going to configure it in such a way that based upon whatever triggering mechanism that I would need, this runner gets woken up or a job gets delegated to this runner where he will pull the source code, he will compile it, he will package it using Maven, and then he is going to deploy it onto a Tomcat server. There are multiple ways of doing it. What I'm going to demonstrate is using a simple tool called as a curl. I would show you how this local runner can go ahead and deploy the war or nothing but the archive application or a packaged application or bundled application onto this Tomcat server, which is running 8.5 version. This is the GitHub repository that I plan to use for my demo. This is available as a public repository, and I will leave the URL in the description of the tutorial so that anybody wants to use this, you can feel free to use it or poke it and use it, modify it based upon your requirement. There's nothing much in the pom.xml, maybe some unwanted things which I forgot to clean up. Pretty simple stuff out here which highlights what kind of packaging that has to be done for this application, what is the dependency, simple dependency, and then probably one of the plugin which is not required but nonetheless just put in there. So this is the GitHub repository for which I would want to set up a local run. So go to the settings section of this, and if you look onto the left, there is something called actions and there is something called runners. Okay, so there are no configured runners. There are ways in which probably what people most of the time use is kind of runners which is provided by GitHub, but we would want to have our own runner. So I'm going to click on this new self-hosted runner. It gives me an option as to what image, where are you where are you planning to run this particular runner. Since my local box is a Windows machine, that is where I plan to run this runner. So Windows, that's what is chosen. Architecture, everything is pretty intuitive for you. You do not have to really break your head for figuring out anything. And in case if there's any changes that happen, based upon the upgrade that GitHub does, the instructions would appropriately be changed. So it says make directory something, get into that folder, and then download some zip file. Okay, so let me copy this and let me open up a PowerShell. I have a folder called GitHub Runners. This is what I will use for the as a base folder for all my runners. So I'm just going to copy this particular command and paste it here. So what it essentially is doing is downloading a zip file, which is nothing but a runner that is provided by GitHub. Okay, it's a simple zip file that would possibly get downloaded. And once that happens, let me check the rest of the commands. Okay, in case you want to verify if at all the runner exe or the zip file that you download is correct or not, there's a checksum that you can look at. I don't want to do that. Right. um, extract the zip file that you have done. That's the next command. All right, this is taking a bit of a time. Let me just wait for it. All right, so now, oops, let me copy the next command, which is for extracting the installer. Okay, if at all I see the dir, I think it's got extracted. There's a bunch of commands and other stuff. All right, now what do I want to do? I want to invoke the config.command with an URL and a token. So these runners are specific. In this case, at least, the runner is specific to the repository that I'm tying it down to. So let me just copy this. Okay, it asks me for a bunch of stuff. Okay, what is the name of the runner? All right, so I don't want to give any name or okay, a runner group. I will just keep it. Hang on a minute, let me just put this to the top. That's better. All right, what is the name of the runner? I will just call it my runner or something like that. Right, do you want a label? Probably I'll use a label called Windows. Okay, these are not mandatory, but in case you have a lot of runners and if you want to make a choice as to what steps or what projects do you want to run on which which runner, the label is what helps you identify these runners. All right, work folder underscore work, that default one is good. Would you like to run the runner as a service? I think this is what is the most preferred option. You get it to run as a Windows service, but I don't want to use that as a service. I'm okay to run it just the way it is, in the sense that I'm going to trigger off this runner as a command prompt. As long as the command is running, the runner will be up. And when I don't want to run this runner, I'm going to stop the command prompt. That's what I would want to run it. All right, so everything is configured now. So what I want to finally do is start this runner with the run command. All right, now if you see here, as long as this particular command is running alive, the runner will be up and available. Once I close this, it's going to go down. That's how I would want it to be configured. This is what serves my purpose. In case you want to have the runner running for a long time, you're better off by running it as a Windows service. All right, that's about it. As simple as this. And now let me come back here, and if I refresh this page, oops, okay, let me go here. Okay, now you see my runner is up and available and it is connected, and since there is no jobs running on it, it's kind of in an idle state. This is all that it is required for you to connect a self-hosted runner onto your GitHub repository. Now I have my runner configured, and let me go ahead and write my YML file which constitutes the steps that is required by my runner. Now how do I identify what kind of a runner to kind of run on? If you just click on this my runner, it will let you know add something called as runs on self-hosted. Now this is the unique identifier that you got to put in your YML file, so that you inform that whatever steps that you would want specifically to run on this self-hosted runner, that should all be addressed by this particular attribute. So let me go ahead and put this YML file. So oops, add a file, create a file. By now you probably know that all these files has to be in a particular folder called .github, and work flows, and you can put any name that you want for your particular YML file. I will call this as my hyphen runner.yml. Now I got to put in a bunch of content here. So I've already got some contents that is put out here. So let me just go through this. On push, what is the trigger point? When do you want this particular action to trigger off? Whenever there's a push meaning there's somebody commits locally and then they push it to either of these branches. Okay, what job are you going to run? I'm going to run some job called as local job. This is just a string. You can put any name that you want here. Now the most important identifier is, where does it run? Typically you would notice this as saying Ubuntu latest, or any one of those runners which are provided by GitHub. Now we're going to say self-hosted. If at all I have multiple runners, there would be probably a way in which I can identify based upon other tags that I put out. Since I have only one runner, it has to be self-hosted. Now put in a bunch of steps. Okay, now my runner is running on Windows machine, and the default shell is a PowerShell. So whatever steps that I'm going to put here, if I don't specify any other attribute, it all runs on this PowerShell. So I'm just going to put a name for one of these step. It's called example step or something like that. I'm just echoing something, run, and then echo. Run is just a command that will run that particular thing in a shell script, or rather in the PowerShell. Echo hello world. Okay, the next command is to print some environment variable. You see here, it looks like a pretty complicated example, but if I just copy this and open up a PowerShell and paste this, this is the command that will give you all the environment variables. Okay, now this is what is going to print. Then after that, I put in two more steps. These are just to identify if at all the environment is all set properly on my machine. Also, most importantly, I want these to run in regular command prompt. Okay, as if though I open up a command prompt. I don't want a PowerShell. That's why I've just put it as shell. Okay, the default one is a PowerShell. If at all I want it to be in a command prompt, I'll have to identify it with this particular attribute. Okay, so what do I want to run here? I want to run the path, a bunch of commands, path, Java home, maven home. All these are the environment variables that I've already set on my machine. I just want to ensure that, or I want to check if all these environment variables gets picked up by my runner. Okay, and finally, I'm also running another command, mvn -version, because I told you our repository is all Java based maven repository. So there are some sort of a prerequisites to run. This is just to check and validate if everything is working okay on my runner. So let me just copy this and paste it here. All right. So if at all there is any problem or something like that, you'll possibly notice that shell command the run must be here. Okay, and then equals must be after this. Okay, and then one more name should all be oops. Okay, this run should also be here. Okay, in case you you have any doubts regarding the syntax, because sometimes it doesn't show you the proper syntax. If there's any error, it doesn't show you what actual error is. If it's a simple YML error, you'll probably notice it. But what I would recommend is, in case you have you need any help regarding the syntax, you can always copy this YML syntax onto a YML formatter and check and validate whether your YML is correct or not. There were some small minute indentation problems which are fixed. So let me go back to this YML file. So the first one is just echoing something. The second one, as I was saying, the default shell is the PowerShell. The third one, this is this step that we want it to be executed in a normal command prompt. Okay, that is the reason why we put this additional identifier or the additional attribute called shell cmd. Otherwise, the default one is the PowerShell. So I'm going to run a couple of things here. That is why I put a multi-line, delimiter here. Echo path, percentage path, and what happens is you just open up a command prompt in the runner, and he's going to, type in this echo path, right? So echo path, echo Java home, Maven home, and then finally one more step just to check whether if maven works correctly or not. mvn hyphen version. All right, so that is all that I want. So let me go ahead and commit this change. Create. Okay, let me just directly go and create this into this particular folder. And if you notice here, my runner is listening to some jobs, and he's got this job. A trigger happened, and then it started running this local job. Right now, let me go back to my actions here and see. Okay, so this is the job that started, and let me check what all it is running. The first example step is the PowerShell. No, sorry, this is the echo hello world. Then it's going to use this PowerShell where all the environment variables is printed out. Okay, and then comes the normal command prompt where the path. Okay, this is the complete path. Next one was the Java home, which is this particular stuff, and the next one is Maven home, which is this particular stuff. Okay, also I wanted to check whether if Maven command runs properly or not. So mvn double hyphen version, that is printing out the Maven version along with what version of JDK is Maven going to use, because Maven internally needs JDK to run. So with this, pretty much my runner along with all the proper tools is all set to be up and running. All that I got to do now is maybe spin up my Tomcat server, also putting the additional steps where I could go ahead and maybe package or bundle my application by running the mbn package command, and then use the curl command to go ahead and deploy the war file onto my Tomcat server. I already have a Tomcat server on my local box again, and for all that matter, this Tomcat server could be anything, right? Doesn't really matter. I'm going to use a local Tomcat because my runner is running locally, so it's easy for him to reach out to my local Tomcat. So I have a Tomcat 8.5 in the bin folder. There's a startup.batch file, which if I bat file, if I trigger that, my Tomcat server is up and running. My Tomcat server runs on localhost 8081. Okay, this is my local Tomcat, and if at all I go to the if I go to C colon Apache Tomcat web apps, okay, this is where all the war files, whatever is deployed. Let me just go ahead and clean it up. I don't want war files to be present. Excellent. So what I've done is for this Tomcat, if you watched any of my previous tutorials, you'll figure out that there is a Tomcat users.xml where I have created a user called deployer with the password deployer. Now these two are required for anybody to log into my Tomcat server and deploy application. He's got the role of a manager hyphen script, which means with this credential, anybody can go ahead and deploy any application onto my Tomcat server. So my Tomcat is all up and running on my local host. I have a credential, username and password. Okay. Now, if at all I want my runner to use some sort of secret, or sensitive information, what I normally would want to do is go to the settings section, and there's a secret and variable. for the actions. All right, now go here and set these secret. Okay, so first one, maybe I will call it as Tomcat underscore user. The username is supplier. Okay, I'll add one more secret. This is the Tomcat password or Tomcat pass. Okay, it's an easy and simple username password. But assuming that you have a very complicated stuff, whatever sensitive information that you would want to inject onto your runner, always it's a good practice to put them inside this secrets. All right, now let me come back to my actions and let me take a look at, oops. All right, now let me modify this by adding in a few more steps which will take care of packaging my application and use curl command. Again, you can use anything that you want. I have on my local box, I have curl installed. If at all you see, if at all I just hit curl, a curl version, I think 8 dot something, 8.0.1, curl is already installed. So I'm going to use a simple curl to go ahead and deploy my war application or a war file which gets generated by the packaging activity of my maven. So I'm going to package it and then I will use curl to go ahead and deploy this onto my Tomcat server. I've added two more steps. This is the addition. Right. So maven package, that is a name, and again I'm going to run this in a typical CMD or a command shell. Even in a PowerShell, I think there should not be any difference. For at least for this command, a curl command would have some sort of a difference, but nonetheless, I just want to run everything in a command prompt. So shell command run mvn package. A package is the goal with which I would like to bundle these applications. So mvn package, and then the other step is deploy onto the Tomcat server. So shell cmd. I'm going to whatever environment, I mean whatever are the two secrets that are present in this particular repository, I would like to get them as environment variables. Okay, and this is the syntax to grab them as environment with the values and then assign it to some environment variables. Again, there are multiple ways of doing this. This is how I would prefer. And then I'm going to use the curl command. Curl upload file target maven dot whenever maven runs any sort of goal, there's always a target folder created, and well within the target folder you have the typical jar, war, or e, or any of those compiled classes. Everything is present in the target folder. So whenever I compile my application or package my application, that's going to create a war file with this particular name. So that's the name that I'm referencing here. And then curl command syntax. Okay, HTTP username and colon password. Okay, at what is the URL of your Tomcat server. Okay, for me, because my runner is running locally, localhost would work. If at all I were to reach out to some other Tomcat server, if there's an IP address or a fully qualified domain name, I need to specify that. Okay, and this is the path. Okay, path is equal to our deployment, complete deployment path. If you look at the Tomcat documentation, you'll find this as to how to kind of go ahead and do a deployment. There is a context path. Okay, this can be anything. I'm just saying by actions because it's a GitHub actions. You can put any name that you want. Update equal to true. Okay, so this is one other parameter. Even if there is any no changes also, this is going to update the new particular version. All right, before that, I forgot to do one more important step, okay, which is check out the Git repository. Because the GitHub repository has got the source code which is on the GitHub server. For the runner to run, he would need access to the source code, right? So this two lines, okay, or rather one line only is required, but nonetheless, with a nice name, check out the GitHub repository, okay, and actions check out at v3. These two lines are very much required, and this has to be before we do mvn package, right here. Okay, check out GitHub repository. Okay, and actions. This is the standard action. You can take a look at what exactly does this signify. It just says that, check out the GitHub repository wherever this code is running, or whichever repository from where this code is running. Check out that repository. All right. That's pretty much it. So let me go ahead and this. I hope there are no more YML errors. It's a little hard to debug this YML errors. All right. Now we have this job that started as well. Okay. All right. I checked out the GitHub repository. And if at all you see the path, well, within our GitHub runner, there's a work folder and there is an MVN web app action. So if at all I go to this particular folder on my local machine, I should possibly see all the code that has been checked out. So GitHub runner work, okay, and MVN web app action. Okay, if you see the time, I think this is the time. Okay. All right. Now you see here, there's a target folder that has got created. Well, within the target folder, there is, web app.war file that is created. And if everything goes well, you should go ahead and deploy it onto my Tomcat server. If you see here, by actions.war, that file is already pushed. And, if at all I go to the Apache Tomcat server, the web apps folder, by actions. Okay, so by actions, all right, a simple web application that has got a simple JSP kind of a page, but the whole idea is how to use a self-hosted runner to compile it, package it, bundle it, and then use any command that you would want to go ahead and deploy it onto a Tomcat server. I hope you found this tutorial informative, and all the source code along with the YML syntax of the runner, everything is present in the GitHub repository, which I will share in the description section. Anybody wants to try out, please do try out, and in case you hit upon any issues, please put in a comment and I'll try to address it as soon as I can. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. You guys have a great day.